You are holding a slab of glass and metal in your hand. It is warm. It is glowing. And with one tap, your voice can leave your body, cross an ocean, and arrive inside someone else's ear in less time than it takes you to blink. For almost all of human history, that was impossible. Not difficult. Not expensive. Impossible. Your voice could only travel as far as it could physically push the air. A shout, a horn, a church bell. Beyond that, your words had to be written down, folded up, handed to a stranger, and carried on a horse for weeks. If someone you loved was dying 300 miles away, you did not hear their voice. You received a letter, and by the time you opened it, they were already buried. Then, in the space of a single decade, that changed forever. Ask almost anyone who did it, and you will get one name. Alexander Graham Bell. It is on the patent, it is in the textbooks. It is the name on the company that wired half a planet. But the real story is messier than that, and far stranger. Because the telephone was not invented by one man in one moment. It was closed in on, from several directions at once, by several people who did not know how close the others were. And the man who got the name, the money, and the monument may have arrived at the finish line by looking at someone else's work. So let's go back. Start in the 1850s. In this world, there is already one machine that beats a horse, the telegraph. Wires strung on poles carrying electrical pulses, tapped out as dots and dashes. It is fast, it is revolutionary. And it is completely, hopelessly limited. Because a telegraph can only send one thing at a time. One clicking pulse, then another. And it cannot carry a voice at all. It carries code, which means a trained operator has to translate your thoughts into clicks, and another operator at the far end has to translate the clicks back. Your words arrive, but you do not. Every serious inventor in the industrialized world is chasing the same prize, not the voice. Nobody is even dreaming that big yet. They want the multiple telegraph, a way to push several messages down one wire at once. Western Union, the richest communications company on earth, is offering a fortune for it. That is the race. And the telephone is the accident that falls out of it. Now meet the first man, history left behind. His name is Antonio Meucci, Italian, born in Florence in 1808. A theater technician, a stage engineer, a man who understood how sound travels because he spent his life making sound travel across an opera house. In the 1830s, working in Havana, he stumbles onto something while experimenting with electric shocks as a medical treatment. A patient holding a copper conductor cries out. And Meucci hears the cry, not through the air, but through the wire in his own hand. He does not shrug this off. He builds on it for the next 30 years. By 1860, Meucci is in Staten Island, New York, poor, and demonstrating a device he calls the teletrafono. He has run wires through his own house, so he can speak from his workshop to his wife upstairs, who is bedridden with crippling arthritis and cannot come to him. That is what he built it for. Not for industry, not for empire, so his wife would not be alone. In 1871, Meucci files what is called a caveat. Think of it as a placeholder patent, a legal note that says, I am working on this invention. Do not let anyone else claim it yet. It costs $10. He renews it in 1872 and 1873. And then, in 1874, he cannot find the $10. A full patent would have cost him $250. He is a broke immigrant who has been badly burned in a steamship explosion and is living on charity. The caveat lapses. The door closes. Remember that year, 1874. 2 years later, Alexander Graham Bell will be granted the most valuable patent in American history. Now meet the second man history left behind. Johann Philipp Reis, a German schoolteacher. In 1861, more than a decade before Bell, he builds a device he calls the telephone and presents it to the Physical Society of Frankfurt. It uses a membrane, a vibrating contact, and a wire. And it transmits sound. What it transmits is famously strange. To prove the receiving end was not simply guessing at familiar phrases, the sentence sent down the wire was a piece of deliberate nonsense. The horse does not eat cucumber salad. It came through. Garbled, thin, but recognizable. Race had something real. But his machine worked by making and breaking the electrical contact, which is superb for a clicking telegraph and terrible for a human voice. Voice is not on and off. Voice is continuous. It swells and fades and bends. Reis's device could carry a tone. It struggled to carry a sentence. He died in 1874, aged 40, of tuberculosis, before he could solve it. Do you see the shape of the problem now? Every inventor in this story is standing in front of the same locked door. And the key is a single idea. Stop chopping the current on and off, and instead make the current vary smoothly, continuously, in exact step with the vibrations of the voice. Make the electricity a copy of the sound. That is called a variable resistance transmitter, which is a heavy phrase for a simple trick. The louder you speak, the easier the electricity flows. The current wobbles the way the air wobbles, and at the far end, a magnet turns that wobble back into sound. Whoever wrote that idea down first would own the human voice. Now we arrive at the 14th of February, 1876, and this is where it gets uncomfortable. On that single day, at the United States Patent Office in Washington, two documents arrive. One is Alexander Graham Bell's patent application. The other is a caveat filed by Elisha Gray, an accomplished electrical engineer and a co-founder of what would become Western Electric. Gray's caveat describes a transmitter in which a wire is dipped into a liquid so that the vibrating voice changes how much electricity can pass. Variable resistance. The key to the door. Bell's patent was granted on the 7th of March, 1876, as United States Patent Number 174,465. 3 days later, on the 10th of March, in a Boston attic, Bell speaks the most famous sentence in the history of communication to his assistant, Thomas Watson, in the next room. "Mr. Watson, come here, I want to see you." And here's the detail that should stop you. The device Bell used to say it was a liquid transmitter, a wire dipped in acidified water. Almost exactly what Elisha Gray had described in his caveat. Look at Bell's original patent application, and you find something odd. The critical passage describing variable resistance is squeezed into the margin, written in a different manner than the body of the document, as if added late. Bell's own laboratory notebooks show him working with a very different approach right up until his sudden pivot. In 1886, a patent examiner named Zenas Fitch Wilbur signed an affidavit swearing that he had been in debt to Bell's lawyer, that he was an alcoholic, and that he had shown Bell the contents of Gray's confidential caveat. Wilbur had told other stories before. He is not a clean witness, but the science journalist and historian Seth Schulman, who examined Bell's notebooks in the archives, laid the sequence out in his 2008 book, The Telephone Gambit, and reached a blunt conclusion. The margin note, the pivot, the timing, and the acid water transmitter all point the same direction. The Bell Telephone Company would go on to fight roughly 600 legal challenges to that patent. It never lost a single one. Not because the questions were bad, but because the company had the best lawyers money could buy. And money was something the company suddenly had a great deal of. Antonio Meucci sued. The case was still grinding forward when he died in 1889, penniless. And it died with him. And then, on the 11th of June 2002, the United States House of Representatives passed Resolution 269. It formally recognized Antonio Meucci's work and his contributions to the invention of the telephone, 113 years after he was buried. So who actually invented the telephone? Here's the honest answer, and it is not a satisfying one. Nobody invented the telephone the way you invent a chair. The idea was in the water. Meucci built it out of love and lost it to poverty. Reis built it out of curiosity and lost it to physics and an early grave. Gray understood the key and filed it hours too slowly or too trustingly. Bell understood the key, arrived at the office with the right paperwork, and had the ruthlessness and the lawyers to keep it. The telephone was not invented, it was captured. And that is the part that should follow you out of this video. You have been taught that inventions arrive like lightning strikes. One genius, one flash, one name to memorize. That is almost never what happens. Invention is a crowd of exhausted people converging on the same locked door in the dark. And history remembers whichever one was holding the handle when the lights came on. Now look back down at the glass slab in your hand Everything in it, every call, every voice message, every video of a face you miss, descends from a single insight. That electricity can be made to tremble exactly the way the air trembles when a human being speaks. That insight belonged to no one, and to several people at once. You are holding a slab of glass and metal. It is warm, it is glowing. And the reason your voice can cross an ocean is not that one brilliant man had one brilliant idea. It is that a poor Italian immigrant wired his house so his sick wife could call for him. A German schoolteacher sent a sentence about cucumber salad down a piece of copper, and an ambitious Scotsman walked into a patent office on the right morning. Every time it lights up, all four of them are still on the line.